Sadhguru Sitaram. Good morning and welcome to all our listeners, brothers and sisters in Trinidad and Tobago, all of those who are listening on social media and in other parts of the world. I want to also welcome you. I know that a lot of people had a very hectic weekend last with Diwali and all of that. And I also want to remind that our listeners that this is an interactive program. You can call 663-2335 or 663-1027. That's the radio and television station, Radio and TV Jagriti. Or you can text me at 768-5925 if you have a question, and I will attempt to respond and answer it to the best of my ability. I also want to let our listeners know that this program is being recorded and will be posted on YouTube and Facebook in a few minutes after the program is finished. And so that those of you who are unable to listen to it in its entirety, you can always come back to it, or you can use it as a resource material to send to someone who you think might be able to benefit from this program. All these programs that have been broadcast on radio and television, TV Jagriti, in the last year, they have been posted on YouTube and Facebook, both by the television station and myself on my account. And so that there's a lot of material there that can be used. There are material regarding how do you identify whether you're an alcoholic or not. If you so identify, then what are the resources available to you if you want to be able to deal with it in Trinidad and Tobago and worldwide. And there's a lot of other valuable material there. Indeed, during the last week, I have had some questions come in to me, text to me. I'm going to attempt to answer them this morning on the program. And I know that I have avid listeners who look out for the program. They send me valuable comments. I want to express my appreciation for that. And I want to invite listeners, if you have questions, even during the week, you can take my number down, 768-5925, and you can text these questions to me, and I will attempt to answer them and address them on the program. When you ask a question, I want to let you know you are also making a very valuable input, because not only you will benefit from it. There's a lot of people who follow this program, who listen to the program, but a lot of them are unable, I know they are unable to access the numbers sometimes during the live show. And some of them are a bit embarrassed sometimes to call and ask the question on air, so that you have the facility of texting or requesting the information. And if you don't have the number, you can call the television station. They will give the number to you as well if you want to contact me regarding anything that was discussed in the program or anything to do with alcoholism and drug addiction. So that, as I said, this is an interactive program. If you have a question, you can call and ask. So let me go to one of the questions that was sent to me during the week. A listener did say, that he looks forward to listening to this program every Thursday. And he had some questions about tough love, and the role that mothers and fathers play when it comes to, sometimes defending their children poor habits and their alcohol and drug abuse. And this is something that I deal with almost on a daily basis. I have been involved in the field of substance abuse for the past 40 years. I myself, being a person in recovery, have had first-hand knowledge of what are some of the issues involved. And I'm also a trained professional, a trained social worker as well. I have studied human growth and development. And there are a few things I would like to touch on this morning concerning this particular question, the whole question of tough love. What is tough love? Tough love is usually when you take a stern position. It may be seen as harsh, sometimes very serious, where you care for someone, you love them, but being kind and soft and tender doesn't seem to work, and so sometimes you have to, like we say, put your foot down and take a firm position. And this is very, very important when it comes to alcoholism and substance abuse, because alcoholism and drug addiction is now classified as a disease by the World Health Authority, by the Pan American Health Organization, indeed by our own uh, Ministry of Health in Trinidad and Tobago. It's listed in the Diagnostic Statistical Manual, DSM, as we call it, which lists psychiatric illnesses and so on as a disease. And it even describes the symptoms and so on that qualifies it to be a disease. So that there's no shame in admitting that, look, you are suffering with an illness, a disease. It kind of takes the stigma out of it. But as a disease, this is a disease where kindness could literally kill the patient. And I'm saying this, it sounds, paradoxical, it sounds contradictory, but whereas in other illnesses and diseases and so on, tender loving care seems to go a long distance in helping the person to recover. But this one, tender loving care can turn into being an enabling function where you enable the person to continue to be sick. And if parents don't realize this, and I'm not scapegoating mothers, but I know since the majority of alcoholics are male, and the the male of the species, the human species, have a special bond with their mothers. It's called the Oedipus complex, where there's a lot of you listeners would be familiar with they saying that mother, boys is for mothers and girls is for fathers. Yes, there's a special relationship between mothers and sons and daughters and fathers. One is called the Oedipus complex, the other is called the Electra complex. This was described by a very famous psychologist, Sigmund Freud, in his writings in the past, where the relationship between a mother and a son is just almost like lovers. He even goes to say that it is almost psychosexual, not meaning to be derogatory in any way, but there is that very, very strong bond. And it probably also explains why there is a lot of conflict sometimes between mother-in-law and daughter-in-law. There's lesser conflict between father-in-law and daughter-in-law, but there seems to always be more conflict between mother-in-law and daughter-in-law, because it's as though these two women are competing for the love of the same man, the son or the husband in this case. So because they both are in a similar kind of relationship there. One is um, because of the bonding, so that boys generally, when they can't, the father is all seen as a competitor sometimes to sons. And this is why sons and fathers sometimes they become, they butt heads together, they get at loggerheads and so on. But the son naturally always find himself, or generally finds himself, defending his mother, even from his father, because of that same reason. So that sons, boys, male alcoholics, they are more likely to be able to manipulate their mothers than they are able to manipulate their fathers. Because the fathers are going to come down like a ton of bricks on them sometimes. When they misbehave, they get drunk, come home and misbehave, especially if the father is still living in the household, he's the head of the household. And the mothers, a lot of times, cover up for the son, or even openly defend them. you know. So, and by doing that, they continue to enable the son to continue to be sick and suffer with the alcohol. So they are the ones who would make the fish broth for him when he is vomiting and he's, sick from a hangover the next day. They will probably be the one who would be soft soaping the daughter-in-law and begging her, look, don't quarrel with him and this and that. When they get estranged, she would be the one to beg her to come back. A lot of times she would leave the door open, you know, without the father knowing, so that when he come home late in the night, he can, and she will put the food there for him. These are all common scenes in a household, and this is how the mother in particular becomes an enabler without realizing. Because of her love for her son, she is vulnerable to being manipulated. I'm not blaming mothers here because my mother did the same thing for me, and I'm not saying that she continued to, but maybe it continued to allow me to continue to be sick because now tough love is not is sometimes, if it is not handled properly, can alienate the drug abuser, the addict. So it has to be done, and this is why this program this morning is very important, because you want to kill the snake, but you also want to save the stick, as we say. You want to help the person, you want to make them realize, develop insight that, look, they need to do something about their alcoholism. At the same time, you want to be there for them. So in treatment facilities, when I worked at Cora, there is a strategy to confront alcoholics and drug addicts. You have to confront them, because if you go along with them, they would lie, they learn to manipulate, they learn to, you know, drug addicts in particular, they call it prayers. They they are so convincing. They could even convince God sometimes when they get themselves in trouble. They have become so adept at manipulation that they could tell a lie and cry, and they actually believe it themselves. And they will convince you that they have no money, it was not their fault, that they need money to go to the doctor. When they want to get the money for their fix, they will find some way. Just and children learn this from infancy. Yeah? They learn how to get what they want, and they would use several methods. Some of them would use, they come and they sweet talk you. They would put on a nice, sorry face, poppy face, we call it. They know how to soften up the parents, especially the mother. Or sometimes, if that didn't work, they will throw tantrums. you know, or I have seen children do this in the grocery, you know, throw themselves down on the ground and make a scene, and they're easily able to manipulate their mothers, their parents, to get what they want, because the parent don't want to feel embarrassed or draw attention to themselves. Everybody's looking, you know. I remember doing that when I was small, when I wanted to go cinema. I would throw a tantrum and manipulate my grandfather, who, rather than being embarrassed in public, would say, okay, okay, come, I'll buy you a ticket. And we from matinee, we'll go to the late night show. And that's another story. But the children learn. There's a book written by a very famous psychologist, Dr. Eric Burns. It's based on what we call transactional analysis. But the title of the book is The Games That People Play. It's a very, anyone listening out there, if you could get a copy of this book, it really explains what I'm trying to say here this morning. The games that people play. How, as children, we would first try, you know, persuasion. We would use our charms and all of that to see if we could get our parents to, soft soap them, as we say, to get them to do what we would like. And children are always pushing the boundaries, because remember, it is their first time in this life, and they don't know the normal boundaries. So they will always test when mothers say or fathers say not to do this. They always want to know. If you really want to provoke curiosity, you just tell a child, don't do this. That's when they really, why are, and if you don't tell them why they shouldn't do it, that's when they become much more adamant and they want to do it. So that they're always testing the boundaries. And when they can't have their way, they also test their strategies. What is it they can do to, to win in the situation, to get what they want? So at first they would use their charm, they would use their wit, they would use their whatever um, capabilities they have. And when that fails, they will start throwing tantrums, they will use other methods. And then if you think that stops in childhood, no. As we grow old and we become adults, young adults and even adults, we just fine tune those same strategies. We wouldn't literally cry and throw a tantrum, but we'll find we become very, very diplomatic. We know how to use persuasive arguments. We learn to rationalize things. And now we choose a method. Sometimes we speak as adult to adult, but a lot of times we're still speaking as though we are a child. And we have parents who will continue to be our parents even until their death and until our old age if they're still around. And we find ways, we know long from experience, we have tried and tested methods how to get them to do what we want, how to manipulate them. Children learn that. They learn the weaknesses of their parents. And they are even able to take money away from their old age parents who are getting pension. And unfortunately, some of them will even use violence and threat. Sometimes they threaten the relationship that if you don't give me this, I will have nothing to do with you again. I will not talk to you. Or if the parents have become dependent on them, well, now they have, they have some weapons they can use. I will not do this for you, or I will not do that. They can easily force the parents. And I have had in my practice several instances, where now older parents are being taken advantage of by the young ones who extort money from them, especially if the young man or young woman has become dependent on alcohol and drugs. They find ways to extort money from their old age parents, their pensioners, the people around them, and not only the parents, they do it to their siblings, their family members, their neighbors. They use the family name as well to get money and all of that. So that coming back to the whole question of tough love, I'm saying all of what I'm saying to let our listeners know how sometimes we could allow ourselves to be manipulated because of our love, because we care for our children. But as I say, this alcoholism and drug addiction is one disease where kindness could literally kill the patient. So that, and I've said this too many times, but no alcoholic or drug addict is going to stop using drugs or alcohol unless to continue to use it becomes more painful than stopping. I'll say that again. No alcoholic or drug addict will stop using drugs unless to continue to use becomes more painful than stopping. So that if mother, father, brother, we all always jumping in to rescue the alcoholic when he gets into trouble or the drug addict, we go and pay the pusher, we go and beg the wife to come back, we beg the employer or we make excuses that he couldn't come out to work, and we are always cushioning him the consequences. We don't want him to suffer the consequences of his drug use and so on. What we are doing, we are continuing to allow the person to be sick. We are enabling them to continue to be ill. So that if you really want to help the person, you really have to come to understand this whole concept of tough love. Now, so that you may want to say, look, I am 100% with you. I am going to help you. I'm going to, make arrangement for you to go for treatment or go to AA meetings. And if you agree to do those, well, then yes, I'll cook and wash and sweep and clean and take care of you, your expenses in the meantime. But it must be a contract. You do what you are supposed to do to stop using drugs, and I will do what I can to help you. But by the same token, if you are not keeping your side of the bargain, I am not going to keep my contract with you. Now, parents threaten that a lot of times, mothers and fathers. If you continue to drink, if you come home drunk again, I will not open the door. But then you go and you open the door. And then you say, if you continue to do this, I'm going to put you out of the house. And the person continues and you did nothing. Those are worse than if you had not said anything in the first place. Because once you make a threat like that and you renege on it, the person loses any fear or respect for you. And they go back to their old thinking that, look, she's like, in Trinidad, we have a saying, you just a soda gas, you just bubble over. But they know that you will concede, you will give in to them, and that makes it worse. And this is why, after some time, parents, mothers, and fathers become totally ineffective, because for the amount of times you threatened and you came up with all kind of um, plans and so on, and you never followed through with it, the alcoholic and drug addict has lost total respect, no fear for you at all. That they know no matter what they do, you are going to be there for them, that you are going to come around. You'll just probably quarrel a little bit and throw a tantrum yourself and all of that, but you'll eventually come around to doing everything that they want you to do. In a way, alcoholics and drug addicts, they literally take center stage, not only with the parents in the family. They become, everybody forget what they have to do, even stop taking care of their own needs and all. And they are all focused now on this alcoholic in the family, how to fix him or her. And there's a whole lot of literature written about this. It's called codependence, where a lot of people naturally they will deprive themselves of things. They will neglect their own needs, but they jump to rescue the alcoholic and the drug addict. And they will justify it. They will tell you, well, look, if I don't do it, who will? If I don't do it, he's going to go to jail, or he's going to become a vagrant, or he's going to commit suicide. Well, this may not sound good to parents and siblings and so on. But if you continue to enable the person, alcohol and drug addiction, the patient doesn't get better with time. These are what you call progressive illnesses. They don't get better. Progressive in the sense that it gets worse and worse and worse with time. So that by enabling the person, if you have any situation, any problem, it is suggested that you always try to nip it in the bud. Like any illness, if you catch it early, you have a better chance of containing the condition without it becoming more and more worse and causing more damage. So too with alcoholism. If you catch it early and you do something do an intervention to deal with it early, you can prevent the person from going through 10 or 15 years of suffering. So that all alcoholics and drug addicts are at risk if they continue to drink and use, especially when you come to chronic addiction. There are only three places that they are going to get. Eventually, they are going to end up. They are going to either end up in prison, they're going to either end up in the mental hospital, or they're going to end up in the cemetery. So that I want siblings and parents and those who are listening to the program realize that that is an eventuality. If you continue to do what you are doing, enabling the person to be sick, eventually that's where you're helping them to go anyhow by what you are doing. So that it might be better, look, to stop it right now. And if they have to go on the streets, okay. But I have, from my experience working with alcoholics and drug addicts, when alcoholics and drug addicts are allowed to suffer the consequences of their behavior, they are much more likely to develop insight and develop the desire to do something about it. So, as of today, if you have an alcoholic or a drug addict in your life, a son or a daughter who's using drugs, you may want to sit with them and contract with them and say, listen, if you continue to use drugs, I can't continue to support you. In no way. In fact, you have to come down like a ton of bricks. But as I said before, you have to be sure that you are willing to carry through with it, follow through with it, that you don't renege on whatever. If you can't lose, if you can't apply a condition that you are stating, then don't even mention it. So that if you say, look, I am not going to cook, wash, sweep, or clean for you anymore, then you have to stick to that. Okay? If you say that, look, if you continue to use drugs, you can't live in this house, you have to be able to stick with that. You let it, but you leave an opening. You said anytime you are willing to stop, right? You can let me know. However, alcoholics and drug addicts are very, very skilled at hiding their condition, to hide, and they still think that they could use and you will not know. But one of the important ingredients in contracting with your alcoholic or drug addict is to insist that they must get into some form of professional treatment, because a professional is able to pick up whether the person is hiding and using or not. In fact, you can do urine screens and all of that to confirm it. But a professional with experience is very, very quickly going to be able to spot whether a person is using or is likely to use. From speaking to a patient, I can tell from talking to them whether they have sufficient insight and motivation to stop. By just listening to them, I can tell. I can also tell whether they're hiding and using drugs from talking to them. You understand? So it's very rare a person might be able to slip and hide and use, but eventually, if they hide and use, they are going to float up, as we say. A person who is addicted to alcohol and drugs can't hide and use for very long. They might be able to do it one or two times and get away with it, but once they take it, that's the trick about, that's the powerful nature of alcoholism and drug addiction. Once you take that first one, it develops a craving for another. So the alcoholic who think he could hide and take one drink, he's setting up himself for another drunk, because he's going to end up being drunk. If, however, a lot of people I have found, let me say this, even the alcoholic and the drug addict, sometimes they have good insight, they have good motivation, they really want to stop, and they are trying their best, but without help, they can't make it. So that we are very fortunate in Trinidad and Tobago that we have treatment facilities like the Substance Abuse Prevention and Treatment Center at Cora Hospital. We have so many AA groups in Trinidad, all over the country. In every little district, you have an AA group that provide free counseling, as it were, and therapy. So, yeah. So we are fortunate to have treatment facility. We have non-governmental organizations as well, like Rebirth House, like you have Heal House, you have all of these private organizations that are also providing support for for yeah, see, I'm getting a call here, but Anyway, you can't take this call right now. Yeah. And we have private professionals like myself who are here who can see a person in confidence and be able to help them. There are procedures like acupuncture that can safely now detox a person who has been dependent on drugs for a very long time. And if you are seriously motivated, then acupuncture will help to tide you over, because a lot of people, when they stop using drugs, they go into what is called withdrawal. Most of the time, they have trouble to sleep. They suffer with insomnia, and they might have been introduced to the drug in the first place because they were having difficulty to sleep. Whether it be prescription pills or alcohol, they're all sedatives. And now, when even though they have good insight and motivation to stop, because they have these withdrawal symptoms that they suffer with, they are unable to do it without help. And this is why it is important that you have medical intervention, input, to help them to tide them over for the side effects. But alcoholism is not just a physical illness, it is psychological as well. It is an emotional illness. There are social issues involved. And this is why going to meetings is critical. Now, a lot of people can avoid the first drink one day at a time, and that will help them to stop. However, stopping is hard and is desirable, but how to stay stopped, that is the important thing. And not only how to stay stopped, but how to stay stopped and be comfortable. You don't want to stay stopped and it just come like you're swimming upstream against the current. You want to be able to stop and be happy. And this is why going to AA meetings, getting on a program of recovery is critical, because in AA meetings, you learn how to deal with the other problems that might have predisposed you to alcoholism and drug addiction. I said in my last program that alcohol, drinking alcohol is only a symptom, or using marijuana, cocaine, is only a symptom of the disease that is addiction. There are other symptoms like low self-esteem, poor coping skills, yeah, like I just mentioned, insomnia, depression, and a lot of people end up using drugs to help them to deal with these other psychological needs that they have. And so that if you take away the alcohol or the drug from them and don't give them an alternative option how to deal with these other, the depression and the anxiety and the loneliness and the low self-esteem and the poor coping skills and all of that, then you're just setting them up to fail again. And when every time a person fails, they lose confidence to the point where some of them say, look, it's no point in stopping again because I know I can't stop. And even the family members, they lose confidence as well, because after so many trials, they've expended themselves taking you to a treatment facility, counselors and psychiatrists and everything. They are their wits end, and you're going back and drinking. So they themselves, they don't know what to do. And that is what led to this one person sending me these questions, what are the other options, for alcoholics and drug addicts? If there's medical, yes, a proper diet, exercise, and rest are integral and important components for a person who is in recovery. Because when a person is using drugs, they neglect their physical health, they neglect a lot of things. And so in recovery, they need to start rebuilding their bodies. You see, unlike other illnesses, if you have dengue or you have yellow fever, it will just affect your body. You'll get a fever, you'll get some muscular aches and so on. I recently had dengue about 2, 3 weeks ago, so I can tell you that. But alcoholism is one disease that not only affects the individual, it affects the body, It is said to be bio, psycho, social, spiritual. It affects all areas of the person's life. So that if you just attend to the physical needs of the body, the diet and the exercise and rest, yes, you might be able to it will assist, but it will not prevent the person who has been using it for depression and anxiety and low self-esteem and all of that. It will not help them to recover. So that it must be a combination of attending to the biological needs, the psychological needs, the social needs, and the spiritual needs of the person if they are going to ever recover from this totally. And this is why medicine and psychiatry and all of that have been failing generally with this, with alcoholism and drug addiction, because medicine will only attend to the medical, the biological person, counseling the psychological. The church is trying through prayers and all of that, and temples and so on, to deal with the spiritual. But if you are going to develop an effective treatment plan that could succeed with an alcoholic or drug addict, it must address all four elements of the makeup of the human person. You must address the biological needs. That is, you have to help the person out to return to eating and exercise and rest and all of that, taking care of themselves physically. You also have to attend to the psychological needs, the person's self-esteem, coping skills, support systems. You need also to look at their social situation, their relationship on the job, relationship with the people around them, because alcohol and drug addiction affects everything, not only the individual, but everyone that they were concerned or they were in touch with. And that makes for a more successful program. So that, yes, simply put, a person who at different stages of their recovery will need, initially in the first phase, in the first days of recovery, they will need to be detoxed. If they have been using drugs up to recently, they will need to be detoxed. They will have to get rid of all the drugs that is in the body. They will have to be helped with all the withdrawals symptoms, that is the shakes, the hallucinations, the insomnia, the irritability, the hot and cold flushes, the temperamental mood changes, those things in the initial stage. But later on, they have to be assisted with the other needs, the needs to now stay stopped. That is, they have to learn how to repair the relationship with other people, how to resolve conflict without having to go and take drugs. And these things it is very necessary to define a support system that is there for them all the time. So that, simply put, a typical chronic alcoholic or drug addict, if you can get them into an in-house program or counseling with acupuncture in the initial stage, that will help them with the withdrawal symptoms and return them to sleeping and eating better. Then, if they link up with an AA program, or they in a treatment rehab setting where they could stay between 6 to 8 weeks, or there are some programs that will last for 3 months, where they're in a safe environment, so that even if they get the urge to take a drink or use drugs, it is not available. Those have been found to work good, but eventually they need to join a support group like Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous. These have proven to be very, very successful in not helping people only to stop, but especially in helping them to stay stopped. So we are fortunate, as I mentioned earlier on, we have Alcoholics Anonymous in Trinidad and Tobago. We have Narcotics Anonymous. And if anyone would like to get information about these treatment facilities and resources that are available, in Trinidad and Tobago, all you have to do is call me after the program at 671-3040, and I would be happy to share the information with you. And now we also have meetings online using the Zoom platform. This program is actually being using the Zoom platform to I'm using this Zoom platform to do this program. So I'm actually sitting in my office from here, and I don't have to go to the radio and television station. You are seeing two screens. One is from the radio and television station, and one is from my office camera. So I like to make fun and say you're getting the message twice, so you don't miss anything I say. But of course, if you have questions, you would see I have put a number up here, 768-5925, where you can text these questions to me during the program, or you can text it after, and I will always bring it up in the subsequent program where I would respond to it. All you have to do is listen. And for those of you who could not or have not or would like to go over the program again, this program is replayed on radio and television Jagriti at 10 p.m. tonight. Every Thursday night, it is repeated. So you can go back and listen to it. And I know a lot of people have been asking their siblings or anyone who they think might have a drinking or drug problem. They have them tune in and listen to the program. And if you have questions, you can call me as well at 671-3040, and I'll be happy to respond to them. So that the program, as I said, is posted on YouTube and Facebook at the end, and so that you can use it as a resource material. You can also post your comments there or questions there. The remarks will come to me. Any comments people make do come to me, and I would use it to respond to whatever questions that they might have raised. So I like to encourage people to call the program as well. If you have comments as well, you can express it on the short comments. You can express it on the program. I also, just before we close, I would like to remind you all that we do have treatment facilities in Trinidad and Tobago. There's the Substance Abuse Prevention and Treatment Center, which is located at the Coro Hospital on El Dorado Road in North Trinidad. That program, there's a clinic there every Thursday from 8 in the morning. I think the clinic runs for half day. When I used to work there, I think it's the same, where if you have a referral from a doctor, or even if you don't have a referral, you could go and they will interview you, they'll take the information, and it is free. There's an in-house program there for 6 weeks, and there's an outpatient program as well. Then there are several non-governmental organizations like the New Life Ministries. They have a treatment facility at Mount St. Benedict. That their program usually runs for 3 months in-house, and they have a follow-up program that runs for about 2 years. Now they have also started a treatment facility for women in Santa Flora. And of course, there's a cost attached to that program. And you can call them and make the inquiries. There's the Heal House, which is a rehab center in central Trinidad that was started by the sugar company at one time, that is now being run by a voluntary group. And then there's the Rebirth House that has treatment facilities in Port of Spain, Carenage, and they also charge a little fee for keeping patients there in-house. Then you will all have seen the services provided by Serenity Place, which is a treatment facility in South Trinidad for women that is run by my colleague, Mrs. Mawson, Beverly Mawson. She has appeared on the program. So you have all of these facilities that are available in Trinidad and Tobago. And then there's meetings online that happens every evening on Zoom, the Zoom platform. Anyone interested can call me and I will give you the information, the ID and the password that you can join these meetings. And I mean, it's safe. You don't have to go anywhere. You don't have to pay any fee. Just get in touch with me. I'll give you the information. And so you can attend meeting. And there are meetings available worldwide on the Zoom platform. If you go on the net, you can access these meetings, Alcoholics Anonymous meetings, online, and you can attend without even having to leave your home. Once you have a smartphone and internet, you can access you download the Zoom app. It's free. The Zoom app is also free. You can use that to access the meetings. So that the resources are available. All you have to do is to reach out. Help is available. So I want to thank all of you who have been listening to the program. And again, if you have any comments or questions, you can reach me at 671-3040, or you can text me at 768-5925, and I will be happy to respond to your question, in the upcoming program. I want to thank you all for listening and to remind you again, this program comes on every Thursday at 9 a.m. And this program will also be replayed again at 10 p.m. tonight on radio and TV Jagriti. So until next week, Thursday, I want to thank the Sanatan Dharma Mahasabha, and especially for giving free airtime as a public service on this platform, this radio and TV Jagriti, who have been doing this from the inception as a public service to all our listeners in Trinidad and Tobago and worldwide. So thank you all again, and goodbye for now. See you again next week, Thursday. Bye.